What's going on, guys? Barzine Vasukian here with you on a Sunday morning, probably afternoon for some of you guys over on the East Coast. Welcome in. Welcome in. Chiefs Chargers pregame live chat. I have a feeling we will not be discussing that as much as we will with playoff scenarios instead, because the Chiefs obviously are locked in to the number 3 seed. They're going to be putting in a lot of backups today. A lot of expectation, though, that the Chiefs will have some of their starters out there, more notably Travis Kelce on offense and Chris Jones on defense. Chris Jones looking for just half a sack to get a $1.25 million bonus incentive from the Chiefs per the contract agreement heading into week 2. And Travis Kelce looking to get 16 yards so he can become the 7th player in NFL history with 1,000 receiving yards 8 years in a row, at least 1,000 receiving yards 8 years in a row. But nonetheless, I see you guys are coming in here. Let's get right into it. Chiefs and Chargers. I'll make this one short because I know a lot of you guys have other interests right now regarding football Sunday today. I don't know who the wide receivers are going to be for the Chiefs in this game. I mean, you're probably going to see some of MVS, probably going to see some of Richie James, whoever's going to be out there. Justin Ross obviously going to play a lot in this one. Let's see something from these guys, because this has not been a very good year for the receivers. I think outside of Rashee Rice, probably Justin Watson, he may get some snaps. I just want to see the receivers go out there and show me something. That's what I'd like to see. Go pass heavy on this one. Let your receivers get some reps. This is essentially a preseason game for guys like MVS, Watson, Justin Ross, Richie James, guys who have not played a whole lot. Justin Ross, hasn't played as much, but even in the little amount of time he has played, did have those 2 drops in that Minnesota game. MVS, we know the story with him, some big drops that could have led to touchdowns, multiple occasions. Justin Watson, he's had a lot of drops as well this year. So let's see what the Chiefs do with the passing game. On the defensive side, I'm really curious to see what the defensive line is going to do in this one. Obviously, the biggest one a lot of people want to see is FAU. First round draft pick, hasn't played a whole lot. Did play some early on in the year when he was playing in place of Charles Omeni, who was serving his 6-game suspension. And now that we're going to see a lot of the backups in this game, before I get to that, when Omeni came back from his suspension, we saw FAU's playing time go down a lot. So who do you have on your defensive line coming into this game? You got 2 rookies here to look at. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, I just mentioned, and BJ Thompson, the 5th-round draft pick who the Chiefs got this year. And then, what about a guy like Treshaun Wharton, who has stuck around with the Chiefs for quite some time? Neil Farrell, who the Chiefs traded for in a rare division trade from the Las Vegas Raiders. I think maybe that was like a one of those safety measures that was done in case they needed some depth at the defensive line with the interior guys in case Chris Jones did not come back. Ended up coming back sooner than some people expected. So you have all of that right now. And I want to see what those guys do. Malik Herring, another guy, because the Chiefs do lead the NFL in sacks. And I want to see who on this defensive line can step up and make plays, because if these guys play just as well as the other defensive linemen have, well, guess what? You're going to have a big group of defensive players that are going to be hungry for the playoffs. This pass rush is going to win you football games in the playoffs, regardless how good or how bad the offense has been this year. I think that's going to be the number one thing for the Chiefs in this game. That's what I want to see on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the football. All right, I see a lot of you guys are in here. Yeah, a lot of people want to see Felix. Michael wants to see Pirine. He had a pretty good preseason. Him and Deneric Prince looked really good. Bob is saying hopefully Justin Ross. Yeah, Justin Ross, we've heard all this hype from Justin Ross for almost 2 years now, but we haven't seen anything yet. I know last year he was hurt. I get it. But right now, he's got a chance to show something. I know Blaine Gabbert had some high praise for him. There was that article on the Monday Morning Quarterback from Albert Breer that mentioned that he has had a very difficult time picking up the offense. And that was the same week of his arrest and all the stuff that went down at the time. Obviously, that's now in the rearview mirror. So he's back on the team. He's been back on the team for quite some time now. Pick it up. Let's see him make some plays. Let's see that side of Justin Ross that we have not had a chance to see. Okay. All right. So we talked about the receivers. We talked about the defensive side of the football. Let's go to playoff scenarios here, because I know that's what everyone is pretty much talking about with today, because let's be honest, the Chiefs don't really have much of an important game. So here's a playoff picture right now with the scenarios in there. Obviously, you see right here. By the way, can you guys see my mouse? I don't know if it's too small or if you guys see it on your guys' screen. If you guys can let me know, that would help. So that way that way I'm not just pointing things out to myself, because if you guys can let me know, that'd be great. But the Chiefs have the 3 seed. Obviously, they'll be playing who has the 6 seed. And as you can see right now, there are still 3 different teams. Miami, a couple of avenues that would lead to Miami coming to Kansas City. Houston has a chance of coming to Kansas City. And there is a rare event of Pittsburgh coming to Arrowhead next week. So here's the way I see it. Trevor Lawrence is playing. Or at least he's active. Now, obviously not going to be in full strength. And by the way, it's January. One's 100% right now. So I think Jacksonville wins this game. Okay. So look at the top 2 lines. It's pretty much going to be, unless Jacksonville loses, it's going to be Miami winning, Houston comes to Kansas City, or Buffalo winning, Miami comes to Kansas City. Buffalo's in such a weird place, man, because they need they don't need the Titans to win, but it certainly would help, because if the Titans win, the Bills are in. Tonight's game is essentially, who gets the 2 seed. Now, if the Jaguars win, tonight's game becomes very interesting, more so for the Buffalo Bills. The Dolphins are in no matter what. But man, by the way, Bud is saying crap weather next weekend. The Miami media is already talking about that. They're already assuming that the Dolphins are coming to Arrowhead next weekend. Now, I haven't had a chance to look at the weather. I'm not too concerned about that right now, obviously, because I'm not traveling. But I will say this. Someone pointed out yesterday that the NFL might put the Chiefs-Dolphins game. And by the way, I don't know when the dates are going to come out. I think they come out at halftime or during the fourth quarter. That's what they did last week for all the Week 18 games during Sunday Night Football. So I don't know exactly when the schedule will be released. They used to do it at halftime, and then at some point they waited to announce it after the games. I don't know what's going to happen tonight. So we just have to wait it out. But it will be first announced during Sunday Night Football at some point, either during the game or afterwards. It would not shock me if the Chiefs are scheduled to play on Monday with the hope from the NFL, again, assuming it's going to be before we see the final score, with the hope that Tyreek Hill is returning to Arrowhead. Because if you look at this picture right here, Miami's got a 50% chance of coming to Arrowhead. The Steelers have a 25% chance. Obviously this is like, win-loss, but in terms of actual, like, when you consider, Jacksonville, Tennessee, that percentage, it's much lower than percentage-wise, but I'm just going, 50-50 on these things. But the Steelers, a lot of people think the Steelers are coming to Arrowhead. A lot of Chiefs fans. I disagree. There's no way the Tennessee Titans are going to beat the Jaguars, and the Miami Dolphins will beat the Bills. Listen, Miami's in a bad spot right now. They're not going to have Mostert. They're not going to have Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill, as great as he's been this year, and I think he should be in the MVP and Offensive Player of the Year conversation, but the knock on Miami, and this is a fact, It's not, make believe, because I brought this up heading into the Chiefs game in Germany and people said, oh, you're just being a hater. No, everyone's talking about it now. Miami cannot beat good teams. Yeah, they beat the Cowboys, and don't get me wrong, that's good. I don't care if it was by 2 points or 200 points. That's good that they won that. But in general, the Dolphins have not played very well against teams with a winning record. They got destroyed by the Ravens last week, a team that, they could potentially see in the AFC title game. But, man, I'm just going to say right now, I don't know if Miami is going to go very far in the playoffs. I just don't see it. Even if Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert do come back for the playoffs, and that is the expectation that they will be back in time for the playoffs. Man, I still don't know if I have any confidence whatsoever in that Miami team. Do you? Because they've struggled against winning teams this year. It's on paper. They played the Buffalo Bills earlier this year, and they got destroyed. Now, this game is going to be in Miami tonight, but listen, the whole Josh Allen thing, I will say this. I think the Bills have got they've been hot the last few weeks. They're getting hot at the right time, but the inconsistencies are still there with Josh Allen. Thank you, Raymond. Yeah, unpopular opinion. I love Black Chiefs apparel. I really do. Shout out to Dick's Sporting Goods. They sent this to me. They saw my man cave video and they reached out on TikTok. They're like, hey, we want to send you something because you have a cool man cave. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, why not? So shout out to them. Shout out to Dick's Sporting Goods. So to me, it's like, I know Josh Allen has been far from, I know Buffalo Bills fans think he's the MVP this year. He's not. Far from it. Do I think he's played better lately? Yes. Do I think he's still committing a lot of turnover? I don't think he's committing a lot of turnover. He is continuing to make those mistakes. Look at the game last week against the Patriots. Josh Allen was horrible throwing the football, but he did make it up by, getting a couple of rushing scores in there. I just don't know at the end of the day, if you're Buffalo, how do you feel about not just tonight's game, but the playoffs? I know they got to get the playoff game first, but man, I just don't know. Yeah, Denny, I agree. I agree with you. But again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. There are a lot of games that come down to one minor thing, and that ends up being the difference maker late in a game. But I'd love to see the Chiefs and Bills play each other again, because I really want to see the Chiefs dethrone the Bills again in the playoffs. Because forget about the offsides thing for a moment. In that game, the Chiefs, they allowed 2 touchdowns early. And you see this a lot with the Chiefs defense. You saw it last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, where they got off to a 17-7 lead on the Chiefs. And then the Bills, they had a 14-0 lead on the Chiefs. The Packers, they got a couple of early scores on the Chiefs, but then in all of those games, they figured it out and they were able to, make those adjustments, which Spags, I've said this for years about Spags and Andy Reid as well. This team has done a very good job of making adjustments this year, even more. I think Spags has been phenomenal when it comes to defensive adjustments. You've seen the Chiefs make a lot of those changes this year, but I just worry at the end of the day for Josh Allen, when he does face a stout defense, what kind of a team is Buffalo? Because if Josh Allen struggles, man, you better hope your defense play. You're essentially talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Because remember those 3 weeks when the Chiefs could not score in the second half? Everybody was talking about the Chiefs defense and how they were carrying Patrick Mahomes. Well, Buffalo might find themselves in a very similar position. A big reason why Buffalo won last week was not because of Josh Allen. Yes, he did get those 2 touchdown runs in, but that's not an ideal way to win. What helped Buffalo last week? Well, those 3 interceptions in the first 17 minutes of the game made a big difference. And I know the Patriots had that special teams touchdown, that kick return touchdown to open up the game, but man, you saw the Bills defense come together and really pull through, kind of like how the Chiefs have needed their defense to pull through in a lot of games this year. Yeah, you're right about that, but he does struggle with a lot of elite passers. They do tend to struggle with pressure, and I think that is something you got to be mindful of. You have to be careful what you ask for. You're liable to get it. I do not want to see Buffalo till the divisional round. Um, you know, uh, I'm not afraid of Buffalo. They're not. Look back at that Sunday night game against the Giants. Okay, now the Giants, when they got the ball to the 1 yard line before halftime, they only had one play, and they failed to try to get the ball into the end zone. Rather than kicking a field goal, they tried to go for the touchdown. And at the end of the game, when they had 2 seconds because of that interference call, they had another opportunity, but again, failed at that. Now, you only have 60 minutes of football, so the Bills obviously won fair and square. I know they had that interference call that was missed, but hey, that happens. But my point is, if the Giants had a full set of downs, what happens there? So I think Buffalo, I know a lot of people love to say the Chiefs have been lucky in a lot of their wins, and, it's better to be lucky than to lose. Buffalo's been lucky as well in some of their games. I just pointed out the Giants won. Obviously, the Chiefs, Kadarius Toney, with what he did, that gave the Bills a massive break there because they didn't score another touchdown after that 14-0 lead. So at the end of the day, I just don't know if Buffalo, even though they've been winning a lot of games lately, I just don't know if Buffalo really scares me that much in the playoffs, assuming they make the playoffs, and I think they will. Ben disagrees with me. He says Buffalo will lose today and be eliminated. They can try again next season. Okay, I got a question. True or false? If the Bills win but lose in the first playoff game, Sean McDermott is fired. I know that's a lot of ifs, but because I keep saying for a long time, I think Sean McDermott is going to get the Doc Rivers treatment where, the Celtics had made the playoffs, but kept losing in the same spot so many years in a row. Hold on. Did I say Celtics? I think I meant 76ers, right? Yeah, I definitely meant 76ers. They've been to the same place so many times, but they don't get very far. So they had to let them go. Okay, some people are saying true, some people are saying false. Interesting. I mentioned this last night. Not Josh Allen. Sean McDermott was asked about Josh Allen's inconsistencies throwing the football and whether or not they could figure it out. And he gave a really weird answer saying if we could have figured it out, we would have done it by now. Wait a minute. You just really said that to the media? You said that publicly? I mean, at least the Chiefs are saying, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Yeah, it's annoying. You sound like a broken record every single time when the offense struggles, but at least they're not giving up. Josh Allen was like, or not Josh Allen, I did it twice now. Sean McDermott was like, yep, I give up. We can't do it. We don't know what to do. I mean, come on. Yeah, he really said that. Yeah. Listen, the whole 9/11 thing too, not that it has any impact on the game, a comment from years ago, but bad PR. I mean, that's a big deal. Here's my point with the Bills. They've been drama riddled for years. The whole Stephon Diggs thing, even though that was only for a day, I turned on sports talk radio in Buffalo. Here's what I like to do, and I did this last night with the Indianapolis Colts. I really wanted to hear whenever something bad happens. I always want to hear the local sports radio station from that town. And whenever Stephon Diggs was not present for practice in OTAs this year for one of the OTAs, I turned on sports talk media in Buffalo. Man, I mean, you thought there was you thought a meteor hit Buffalo. People do, and by the way, when they talk about Buffalo's recent downfalls, what is the first thing they bring up? The 13-second game. As a Chiefs fan, that feels pretty good to hear. But I just don't know. At the end of the day, what is the end game with this team? And then losing to Cincinnati the way they did, and Stephon Diggs holding his arms up right at Josh Allen. It's just, you know, I think that the team at the end of the day, they've got a lot of great players. Hypothetically speaking, if the Buffalo Bills were not a franchise and all of their players were let go, man, there are going to be a lot of teams calling the agents of those players. Stephon Diggs, a phenomenal player. I think he's an awesome receiver. I don't know if I'd want that guy on my team because even in Minnesota, there were some talks about, you know, how there was some drama behind the scenes with Stephon Diggs. And I hated seeing him go. Now I think they're okay now because they have a guy like Justin Jefferson. And listen, we'll see what happens with the quarterback situation. But man, I think they're. And by the way, I don't know what Stephon Diggs' contract situation looks like right now with the Bills, but even if he is a free agent, I think there are better options for you. So. Yeah, we're turning this into a Buffalo Bills conversation, but I think, listen, the Buffalo Bills are a big deal right now because if they lose this game tonight, there's going to be a firestorm in Buffalo. Because how many games have they won recently? Because there was a point where a lot of people thought the Bills were done and they were not going to make the playoffs. Yeah, so going into week 13, their bye week, they had lost 3 or 4 games, including that overtime loss to Philly, and that put them at 6-6. Since then, they've won 4 in a row. They beat the Chiefs on the road. They beat the they just demolished the Dallas Cowboys. Barely beat the Chargers, but hey, win's a win. Barely beat the Patriots, and now here they are facing a Miami team. Yes, they've been red hot offensively, but as I've stated earlier, they just don't do very well against good teams. And even after that first loss in week 1 against the Jets, and I know that night is remembered more for the Aaron Rodgers injury, they did pick it up. They destroyed the Raiders and the Commanders and Dolphins. That Dolphins game, you know, again, we're going back to that game. I remember looking forward to that game. I thought that was going to be the best game of the week. Ended up being a massive blowout. I think the Dolphins got like a garbage time touchdown late in the game. So, yeah. That loss to the Patriots. I mean, that if the Bills do lose tonight's game, I think a lot of people are going to look back at the New England game as the difference maker as to why they did not make the playoffs this year. That and the Broncos one. I completely forgot about the Broncos one. Yeah, the Broncos where they had 12 men on the field. Oh, Jesus. I completely forgot about that one. So, I'll tell you what, man, if the Jaguars win and Buffalo loses, it's going to be a firestorm in Buffalo tonight. I will definitely be tuning into Sports Talk Radio in Buffalo to hear that reaction because it is going to be interesting to listen to. Hopkins is 50-50. Not big on the Cowgirls, but think they can win on the road. I do. I don't remember who they're playing, but I remember picking them. They're playing the Commanders, I assume, because the Eagles are playing the Giants. Yeah, every team is playing a divisional game. So, yeah. Yeah. You wouldn't want Pickens either. Yeah. Listen, I know that whole thing with him not blocking. And then he went off against the Bengals the following week. It's like, you know, short-term memory. That's a thing. That's a thing in sports. We all know that. Picked Buffalo, but I think Miami wins. You picked Buffalo, but you think Miami's going to win. Come on, man. It is a tough game because you just don't know which Miami team is going to show up. And you're assuming their struggles against good teams continue. But you also don't know which Josh Allen's going to show up. There's a lot of mystery going into tonight's game. Listen, I actually bet on the Bills to not only win but to cover. So they fucking better. But my God, it is going to be insane. It is going to be it's going to be crazy if that happens. Higgins is laughing with Chase. I don't want his ass next year. I like T Higgins. I know a lot of people think T Higgins is gonna come to KC. I don't think he would do that. I know he drops the ball. He also deals with a lot of injuries too, but he does make up for it a lot with those big plays. Contract wise, let Willie Gay walk. Give Snead a new contract. Try to throw as much money possible to try to get Evans. I agree with this 100%, Eric. Worth a shot, although he may just return to the Bucks. Yeah. Mike Evans, he's been awesome. He's like been quietly great for 7 years. Even the year the Bucks won the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, it's just like, everyone talked about Brady and Gronk and AB. Like Mike Evans was, the B tier, second tier guy, which I, did not agree with one bit. He was a huge part of that. Don't get me wrong. Like Mike Evans gets his respect with Pro Bowls and All Pros and all that stuff, but I just feel like nobody talks about the guy. They didn't have the heart to pick Miami. I agree, Robert. Like, regardless what happens in that Jacksonville, Tennessee game, the Bills should win tonight. That's what I think. Yeah, and by the way, to go back to Eric's comment, and I know he followed it up also, the Willie Gay thing, I'm kind of 50-50 on what you said there. Yeah, you got to cut MVS. He's, for $11 million and that level of production, yeah, he's got to go. Now, the one that would be hard is to restructure Jawan Taylor's contract. Yeah, sure, the Chiefs definitely would love to do that now, but he's also got to agree to it. Takes two to tango in that situation there. Yeah, he is, Denny, but he also makes a lot of big plays too. I've said this so many times. I think Chase, Higgins, and I even think Tyler Boyd could all be number one receivers on a lot of other teams. Obviously, with the exception of teams like the Buffalo Bills, who have Stephon Diggs, the Raiders, who have Devontae Adams, if they keep him this offseason. I know there are rumors about him going to the Jets. Tyreek Hill, I think I just mentioned. So there are some teams that would not need any of those receivers, but I think a lot of those guys would be teams would be very quick to contact their agents. Rice is going to be close to a number one next year. Oh no, he's 100% your number one receiver next year. I think you would need him. If you have him and a reliable veteran come in next year, that would be very good. What about Justin Jefferson? Is he a free agent? He is going to cost a lot of money. He's going to cost a lot of money, Denny. And listen, in order to get good players, you got to spend a lot of money. I get that. If you get Justin Jefferson, can you keep L'Jarius Sneed? Yeah, this is a really good point, Travis. He has absolutely. He leads the NFL in yak, but I don't think Rashee Rice is playing tonight. And Tyreek Hill, obviously, the Dolphins are playing in a massive game, a game with big implications. So Tyreek Hill is going to take the lead back from Rashee Rice, but you got to understand, Rashee Rice did not play a lot of snaps. He was not treated like a number one wide receiver early on in the year. So, and by the way, to go back to the whole thing with Willie Gay, Joshua makes a good point here. Let Gay walk and re-sign Drew Tranquill. I like that idea a lot, actually, as much as I would hate to see Willie Gay go, unless he's not going to be demanding a lot of money. I'm curious if Drew Tranquill, what is he going to demand in the offseason? That would be something to just be aware of, because if he's demanding a lot, Tranquill that is, and Willie Gay isn't, maybe you have to go the other way around with that. Yeah, Leo Chenal. I really like Leo Chenal. Eric, yeah, that's man. I've been talking about Leo Chenal for quite some time this year, and I know a lot of people were excited when he got drafted. As exciting as that is, so many times with the draft, I'm a wait and see kind of guy. Like I'll see it, I'll believe it when I see it, that kind of thing. But Leo Chenal, I think this year with the opportunities he's had, uh, he's certainly impressed a lot of people quietly too. Yeah, Chanel might be the guy that replaces Willie Gay. Depth is not a bad thing, but you got to focus on the offense. Listen, you got to hope that you're healthy next year, because if you are, and if you bring back L'Jarius Sneed, you're gonna have a good defense. And we haven't even mentioned this yet on this live stream. The whole thing with Chris Jones. What is the future with him? He's probably going to ask for a lot of money, and he gave a very upfront interview on Sunday Night Football, or Football Night in America, whatever that pregame show is, where he talked about how he thinks that this could be his last year in Kansas City. So he's keeping it 100 for sure. Denny's asking about FAU. Yeah. So here's my thing. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago. Do I think the Chiefs could have benefited from an offensive player like a wide receiver or an offensive tackle in the draft? Yes, I do. But I think down the line, we are going to look back at the FAU pick, and I think we're all going to be happy about the selection. We're going to like the way that all panned out. It's just hard to see it that way right now, because the offensive woes make you think, should the Chiefs have gone offense with their first round pick? So, yeah, this is a really good point, Gwen. Jerick McKinnon, he has signed 1-year deals, and not like very expensive deals either, too. And, with him getting hurt to finish the year, and I think he's going to be 33 years old. Jerick McKinnon, birthday. He's 31 years old. He will turn 32 on May the 3rd. So, that's not young, but it's not really old either. You got to understand one thing. Even though, he'll be 32 years old, Jerick McKinnon has not played a lot of snaps in his career in general. So it's not like this is a guy, look at Ezekiel Elliott. The guy got used a lot early on, and running backs, the tread on their tires not as good as it used to be, because defenses have gotten better. They hit a lot harder. And even though, we talk so much about defensive players, how hard it is with certain rules and whatnot, but still you see a lot more aggressive defenses today than you did back when the league used running backs more. And when you look at Ezekiel Elliott today, I mean, the guy's pretty much turned into a journeyman in the NFL. He's certainly not going to stay in New England, I don't think. But back to the Jerick McKinnon point, this is a guy that still has some gas left in the tank. And I think, re-sign him again for another 1-year deal. I know the Chiefs do like Deneric Prince and LaMichael Pirine, but McKinnon's done a lot of good things for you. I know this year was not as great of a year for him, but you got to hope that, and listen, there's time for him to come back if the Chiefs do make a deep run. So we'll see. We will see. Chris Jones will get paid or he walks. I think he's going to walk. Here's the thing. I don't even know if it's worth franchise tagging him unless you are 100% certain somebody is willing to trade for him. That's the only thing I worry about if the Chiefs tag Chris Jones. L'Jarius Sneed, man. I mean, that guy. I do not want to lose L'Jarius Sneed. That because back when Chris Jones had his holdout, I kept talking about how, if you sign Chris Jones to a long-term deal and give him the money that he wants, it's going to be hard to re-sign Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, and Nick Bolton. Now, I'm putting L'Jarius Sneed as a number one priority. My number one priority was protecting Patrick Mahomes, and I still think that is very, very important. Don't get me wrong, but with the way L'Jarius Sneed has played this year with this defense, and I think the rookie quarterbacks, they played good. I think they've taken a little bit of a step back. You got to keep L'Jarius Sneed. You got to keep that veteran presence on this defense. And listen, I know guys like Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, they're all going to be third-year players next year. But to have a little bit more experience from L'Jarius Sneed, you cannot lose him. That is like priority number one. Keep him. If you can keep Chris Jones, great. But if he's going to cost too much, tag him if you know for sure you can get trade value out of him. And then, you got to think about extending Humphrey and to keep that interior offensive line together for a very long time. I know the Chiefs have had a lot of good luck drafting interior offensive linemen like Zach Fulton, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, specifically with centers, Mitch Morse, Rodney Hudson. But you're not going to get lucky every single time. They didn't keep Rodney Hudson. He went to the Raiders and to the Cardinals and did a lot of great things there. They didn't keep Mitch Morse. Obviously, the Bills felt very highly of him. I just don't think you can afford to lose Creed Humphrey, because as good as Hudson and Morse were, Humphrey is even better of a center. Like, it's him and Jason Kelsey as the two best centers in the NFL. Everyone, who do they need to release? Joshua. I don't know who they is. I'm assuming you mean Chris Jones. He wouldn't technically be released, but they would just let him walk ultimately. No, Denny, he did not make the Pro Bowl. He has a Pro Bowl alternate though. Snead is worth a good deal. Yeah. You're gonna have to throw some money his way. More trade value in Snead than Jones at this point. I think in August, Ant Pod, if you traded Chris Jones, you probably could have had similar to the Tyreek Hill one. Maybe not in August of all times of the year, but I still think you can get some good things for Chris Jones. Maybe not as big of a deal, as big of a return on investment like the Tyreek Hill trade, but you could still get something. I would honestly be perfect. I would be content with just a first round pick. If you trade Chris Jones for a first round pick and nothing else, great. That guy's in his 30s now. So, or will be in the offseason, I think. So I would be content if it was just a first round draft pick. Oh, CEH, he is not under contract this offseason. So he is set to hit free agency. The Chiefs did not pick up his 5th-year option. So, but look, man, and I know the standard's not very high, but isn't CEH, hasn't he been, playing a little better lately, at least as a pass catcher? Again, I know the standard's not very high, but he's doing some stuff right now. I would not mind seeing CEH come back on a 1-year deal. I would not be upset about that at all. Not at all. Got to make tough decisions if you're Veach. This is true. I say keep Snead, let Jones walk, and try to restructure Jawan Taylor. 100%. And I've been saying this for a while. Said it already on this live stream. I do agree with you, Travis. I think that is the right approach. Now, restructuring Jawan Taylor, that is easier said than done. Jawan Taylor's got to agree to it. He and his agent have got to agree to it. When you pay a guy that much, would they want to say no? Hell no, they wouldn't. They don't want to agree to a restructure. No way. Hoping we don't need to really consider this for another month. Well, yeah, that's true. It's just, today there's not a whole lot to talk about, and we're kind of going all over the place for today's pregame live chat. So, yeah, I know halftime and postgame not going to be very long, and quite honestly, I am not going to be upset about that because I do want to watch that entire Dolphins Bills game. I know I'm going to miss some of it because I'm going to be talking to you guys after the game, which, by the way, reminder, come back at halftime. We will do a halftime live stream, even though we're not going to be seeing a lot of key players. And after the game, win or lose, we will be recapping the game and do a little bit of a Buffalo Miami preview because we'll see what happens there. Yes, Robert, Bolton is under contract now because he has missed some time this year with injuries. And I heard Tim Grunhard bring this up. It is part of the business, and that, ultimately, his injury might allow the Chiefs to just let him play out the contract and extend him next year. That would be huge if the Chiefs did it that way. That'd be huge. Man, we got a lot of comments all of a sudden here. Raul says, who would you rather face, the Dolphins or the Texans? Okay, I don't mean, first of all, the Texans, are quote unquote easier. But I'd rather face the Dolphins. Like, bring Tyreek Hill back to Arrowhead. Let's get that story going. And by the way, to follow up on this question, I get this question every postseason. Who would you rather play in the play? Who would you rather play in the AFC title game? Who's easier to play in the Super Bowl? Well, if you're going that far in the playoffs, that team is not going to be easy. And somebody responded to me on Twitter and said, yeah, but there are ideal matchups. Tell that to Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. Tell that to the two Eli Manning led Giants teams when they beat the Patriots. All teams I just mentioned, the two Giants teams that won the Super Bowl and the Eagles team with Nick Foles that won the Super Bowl, they beat the high and mighty New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. The same year, the same postseason, everybody wanted to play those teams. So whenever I get questions like this, and again, I appreciate the question, Raul. I don't mean to, shit on it or anything. It's just, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to beat the best. That's just a fact at the end of the day. You can't really, sit here and hope for the easy path to the Super Bowl, because there is no easy path to a Super Bowl, especially this year when it's very likely the Chiefs might have to play 1, maybe 2 road playoff games. Nate Burleson just picked the Dolphins and 49ers in the Super Bowl. Good luck with that. I mean, you must really think the Dolphins are going to turn it up against good teams. Wish Chiefs started Mahomes to keep his streak intact. Oh, yeah. He's played every game since 2021. The only quarterback to play every game since 2021, I think. Yeah. I mean, not like the most important stat. Yes, Kelsey is expected to play, Travis. He is expected to play. Him and Chris Jones, they're expected to start today. And to my understanding, they don't want them out there for longer than. So if you are Chris Jones, you better get that $1.25 million within the first 15 minutes. If you're Travis Kelce, you better get those 16 yards in the first 15 minutes, because you do not want to do what Brandon Staley did last year. That was a disaster. And honestly, I think that was the start of his downfall. I really do. All right, going to read a couple more here. Got some football action to start off real soon. The Rams made it at 7-9 one year and won a game. Yeah, listen, we have seen, I think the Seahawks were 7-9 one year, and they dethroned the Saints, I think. I think the Panthers also had a 7-9 season where they won a playoff game. So yeah, you're right, Travis. We have seen that a few times. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it, brother. Thank you, guys. Who would you say is the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the playoffs? It's kind of a toss-up between Baltimore and Cleveland. I'm just laughing because I don't know what Cleveland is. Every single time you think they lose a quarterback and they're going to a second string, a third string, and then they bring back Joe Flacco, who has done nothing this year. But they keep finding ways to win. My God, man, I hope Cleveland wins. And I hope the other two wildcard teams lose, because we all deserve a Joe Flacco reunion in Baltimore. That Cleveland-Baltimore matchup, it has to happen. It has to. I mean, you just that is a big story in the making right there. Travis just said the biggest threat to the Chiefs is MVS. That is true. That is very true. Why am I still on this screen? Who's scary in the NFC playoffs? Oh, the Rams. Yeah, I do agree. Listen, I like the Rams offense. I think they've gotten healthier. They are my dark horse team in the NFC. 100%. I think they can make a run. Speaking of going to Vegas, are you going to plans to be there for the? Oh, no way. I've heard Vegas is like a very popular destination for people to go watch the Super Bowl at a sports book. To my understanding, sports books, even though the city is excited for the Super Bowl, I've heard sports books are kind of like up and down about this, because obviously the price of all the hotels are going to be way up for that weekend because of the Super Bowl. So, are people really going to travel and spend that much money just to watch a game they can watch at home? Because don't get me wrong, watching games at a sports book, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, especially if your team is on prime time. I hate going to a sports book if my team is playing at 12 o'clock or 3:25, because then it's you can't, they don't have the audio for your preferred team. They have, so many different games on. But if it's a primetime game and your team is on, it's actually a lot of fun. It is worth going if you guys get a chance. But yeah, I've heard some sports books are kind of concerned with how things are going to be this year because they're not sure if they're going to have as big of a turnout given that the prices are up. Circus is going to be $500 a night. What's up, Mary? Do you think we play next week at home? Yes, we will play at home next week. The better question would be the following week, and that would depend on other outcomes in the playoffs. I think this is going to be the only game at Arrowhead this postseason. The only way the Chiefs get an AFC title game, and I think this happened to a team a few years ago. I don't know who, but they played the wild card round at home. And then they went on the road for the divisional round and they came back home for the AFC title game. I can't remember the team though, but I know it's happened before. The only way that happens is if the Chiefs continue to win and if the Browns go on the road and upset the Ravens, because then you would get a Chiefs-Browns AFC title game, which, boy, those two teams. Let's see. Today's the day to throw. Yeah. Week 1 and the final week of the regular season, it's still weird for me to say week 18. It is so weird. Those are like the two hardest weeks to bet, but also the most fun. All right, guys, I am out of here. Thank you, guys. This was actually a more lively pregame live chat than I thought. Come back at halftime for the Chiefs-Chargers game. We will discuss that. Come back after the game because we will have a little bit of a clear understanding of the playoff scenarios after that. And I'm actually going to do a live stream after Sunday Night Football because then we will know for a fact who is playing at Arrowhead and very likely the time. Okay, guys, I'm out of here. Appreciate the interactions. I will talk to you all later. Enjoy your football Sunday. Peace out.